Welcome to Beyond Time Signatures. Today with us we have Mr. Connor Kaminski. Welcome to the podcast, Connor.
Oh, mate, thank you for having me. It's an absolute honor. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you. Glad you could be here. I hope like the weather's a little bit prettier this time around the year in London, or no?
Nope. Absolutely not. I'm actually based in the Midlands, and it's definitely cold and definitely raining. But I kind of like that. It gets me in the mood to kind of like hibernate, write some music. So it's all good. It's all good over here.
Awesome, awesome. It's kind of similar weather here. Like it's supposed to be a transition period into the winter, but it's just raining for some reason. So
Yeah.
yeah. I want you to ask about how did you get started with music? Like, what was your first that okay, this music thing sounds
Okay.
cool. So what was that?
Ah. Um, yeah, God, that's a good question. So I think I've always been drawn to guitars and more like rock music. I think that was probably my dad's influence. Like we always used to drive around, and he used to listen to stuff like U2, and a band called The Verve, which you might not have heard of.
No, I know
Um,
them. Bittersweet Symphony is one of my favorite
yeah,
songs.
yeah. That the album that song is from, like Urban Hymns, like we always used to blast that in the car, and he had like the like super like speaker system in the car, like back
I
in the
see.
back in the
The
early
woofer,
2000s.
woofers.
Yeah, he had a subwoofer in the back seat. So like when I was younger, we used to sit in the back, and the subwoofer would come out, and then like it'd just be like you two and the Verve. So maybe you could call it influence. On the other hand, you could call it brainwash, but it worked. And I was always drawn to that kind of music, I think, as I got a little bit older. So when I was about, I think I was about 8, I got my first acoustic guitar, really cheap, like starter thing, like classical with like a nylon string thing. And I think it went on from there. Like I was always drawn to, even in like video games, I was drawn to like rock music and stuff. I remember playing like Need for Speed, like some of the soundtracks in there.
Yeah.
And even games like Roller Coaster Tycoon, you could build a ride and like a roller coaster and pick the music, but I'd always pick rock music. So I guess I just had like I don't know, like a bias towards it. And then I think it was when I watched Back to the Future, um, when Marty plays
The Chuck
Johnny.
Berry. Yeah,
Yeah, Johnny Be Good, and that I just thought it was so cool. I just wanted to be him, and I guess that's enough inspiration when you're that age to just keep on going with something. And that was basically like that kickstart. And I think I don't know, for me and my personality, once I get like the taste of something, I'm really keen to explore it even more and delve into it more. So I would always like practice probably, I don't know. It's hard to say if it was a lot or not a lot, but I guess everyone's different. But I would practice a couple hours a day, if not more than a couple hours, and I'd just work on, yeah, firstly learning U2, again, just because I guess that's where I would start. And it was Muse was the first band that I got into like proper. I wanted to learn all of their sort of stuff. And this was just during like maybe when I was 10, 11, I was playing Muse, and then got into Metallica at about 12. And by the time I was 14, I was listening to Dream Theater, and that's when I first went to see them. They were my first ever gig that I went to see in 2000,
nice.
yeah, 2009. So feels funny to say now, but it was back when Portnoy hadn't left. It was his last tour that I saw him on, and then yeah, slowly started learning loads of Dream Theater stuff. And it was only around 2015 that I just on YouTube one day like bumped into Key by Pliny, and
Okay.
then yeah, slowly transition. I was always playing Ibanez just because they were like quite cheap, but you could get a really good quality guitar for the money. And it was when I saw Pliny with like the US Bowden Koa top thing that I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna save up for one of those. And it was in university that I actually bought my first Strandberg, which was yeah, late 2015. So it's actually been, it doesn't feel like long ago, but it's been like
9 years, dude.
9 years. It's crazy, but that's
Crazy.
essentially like you've had like the full story right there of how I kind of got into it, like slowly but surely, and how I suppose I ended up at this like place that I'm at now.
I see. That begs the question for me, like how, like in what ways have your perspective changed about first music, and secondly, other artists, from being a person who used Strandberg guitars as their main thing to becoming a Strandberg artist.
Yeah, it's a really weird journey, I find. I think you go through this like transition period, I think, when you say like I like bumped into Pliny in 2015. I don't mean physically, but like I mean his music and stuff online, and saw the image of what I guess like I wanted to be, and I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can work towards that. And I think you go through this sort of phase where like your heroes become your peers over time, and it's really, really strange. And I think you begin to understand that a lot of people, I mean, well, everyone is just a human, right? And they have their own personalities, feelings, emotions, and everyone's just another person. It's not like they're on a pedestal. I think we like to put people on pedestals. I mean, I
True,
still
true.
I still do. Like Petrucci for me is like my hero. Like he really, really like is probably the reason I play guitar now and still. But you meet people like Pliny, and you just find out that they're just lovely people, and it's like, oh, hang on, like you all of a sudden like form a connection, and I think it breaks down barriers of what you think the scene and what you think the industry is going to be like. You think it's like the rock star thing. I think the rock star image thing is like a time gone by sort of thing.
True.
I don't really think there's the classic rock star anymore, apart from like your legacy bands that are still going, like Metallica and stuff. But even even them, they're just you can tell that they're just like regular dudes still just playing music and stuff. So it's been a strange sort of like navigating that as me as a person to go from like you idolize like these people like not just Pliny, but like loads of other people that you end up running into. Even when you go to gigs and go to shows, you run into them, and you just realize, like, oh, hang on, they're just a person, just the same as me. Um, but those first couple encounters are just like, whoa, this is so weird. But once you get over that, I think things get a little bit easier to kind of, you know, talk to each other as a peer, like as an equal, rather than just someone you idolize. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does
Maybe
make
it's
sense because that's what I'm experiencing, like in the past 1 year or so. And the
yeah,
major thing, like you like helps is that once you understand that they are just human, you allow yourself to be yourself.
yeah,
Because if you have to, like go, I mean, if you had to like have a chat with John Petrucci, wouldn't you want to be your best foot forward, and even to some extent, like mold your personality so that he likes you more? I would do that
yeah,
in front of Pliny, but if I was from 1 year ago. But now that I get the chance to interact with so many awesome musicians, it's just making me cool being myself. And I guess a similar thing happened to you too, right?
yeah, yeah, for sure. That is exactly what happened. So yeah, it's just I think with social media and different times that we're in, you get to see a lot more personality behind the musician rather than just your perception of what you think they're like. Like even when I was growing up and listening to Dream Theater albums, like all you really have is a name and a picture of them on an album, like in like the like the where the lyrics and the book and stuff. And you're like John Petrucci guitar, and you just start. I don't know. Your imagination goes wild because you're hearing all these crazy solos. It's like, oh my god, this person's a literal god. Like they're so good at guitar, and I think in your mind you maybe never even think I'll never meet them. I'll never talk to them. So they're just kind of like my idol that's keeping me going. And I think in social media now, it's like, you look at someone like Jordan Rudess, he's really, really into social media,
Yeah.
and he's taking like we had like me and him had like a quick guitar lesson, and it's just so strange to be in that position. And I think he's just super open, and like I've never met a more enthusiastic and kind person. and he's just really into all that sort of stuff. And you'd really get to see like the personality behind the keyboardist of Dream Theater. You know what I mean? So it's I think that the advent of social media has kind of dispelled a lot of that sort of yeah, like I don't know, that sort of mystique and mystery behind a lot of people in the scene and especially people in bands and stuff for sure.
Yeah, that's lovely because that it also makes you feel okay with who you are.
Yeah.
I guess so. And I've been seeing some of your like behind the scenes your process videos, and they are quite lovely. So I just want you to ask that how has your song connect to when it comes to songwriting, and there's certain things that they love to do, and if given permission they would do every single time in every song. So how has those have those things changed from like Somnium, your first EP back in 2018, up to now, the EP that's gonna or album that's gonna come out now,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
and
Um,
everything in between too. Like, were you did you have like some phases where you used certain abused it and then you got bored of it and then you went to the new thing and stuff like that?
um, I don't know, man. I mean, God, it feels like so long ago when I wrote Somnium. I was so like I can listen to it now, and it's oh, I mean, there's so many things wrong with it in my mind if I listen to it now as a 28-year-old version of me. But back then when I made it, I was just essentially scraping by, like with the things that I did know. And there were so many things that I didn't know, but I tried anyway. Like for some reason we tracked real drums and it was actually insanely difficult and they didn't sound that good. But we tracked the drums for real and we thought let's use them anyway and they weren't perfect. But I think that's a lesson that I did learn. I actually have not done real drums since that EP, which is kind of the complete reverse of what most people do. I think a lot of people work up towards doing real drums, and even then, not everybody gets there. But I, for some reason, started with real drums and then realized, yeah, I'm not ready for this. But we've committed and let's do it and make it happen. Somnium was, I don't know, Somnium was weird because I feel like I was trying to be something that I probably wasn't. I think I was trying to be like some sort of caricature of intervals and Pliny and stuff because a lot of the song structures were very basic. And that's not to say Pliny or intervals are basic at all, but from
At
my
core,
understand,
those, yeah.
especially like interval songs, like I think the core intervals formula is kind of like a pop song structure with pop, like metal and like modern pop production, and then a load of like embellishments and insane playing is like put on top of that. So you might have like a verse two, chorus two, middle eight, outro as like your 3 minute track. And then I would sort of take that and be like, okay, so how can I do this my way? So something like Hypertension was a really simple song in terms of like verse one, chorus one, verse two. It was almost like, yeah, it was like a formula. It's like, well, verse two has to come after the first chorus because, that's what intervals does. And I don't know how to write a song if I don't like take that little bit of information from intervals. So that it was kind of restrictive in that way. And a lot of the songs, yeah, even on that EP are very simple. And you can even hear, like, even in some of the guitar playing, I'm just a little bit unsure of myself. Well, I can hear it now. I'm a bit unsure of myself. And I don't think I really play with conviction. And I think, yeah, the mix is not very good at all. Because I've mixed everything that I've done. And again, maybe this is just a quick point to say, like, when I was mixing Somnium, it didn't stop me from releasing it. I knew it wasn't perfect. Like I could tell the drums weren't like how I wanted them to sound. I got them as close as I could, but it wasn't ideal. But it didn't stop me from releasing it and being like, okay, that's that chapter done. Let's move on. I think just a really quick side note that don't stop yourself if something isn't perfect because yeah, there's a bigger topic around this whole thing that I'm kind of into at the moment, but I think perfection is kind of actually a weakness rather than a strength.
True.
Um, I think a lot of people will, like, if you took me in that situation and I didn't deem it perfect, and then a lot of people would sit and not release it because they didn't think it was good enough. But, I had to write Somnium to get to where I am now. And I'm glad that I did because, if that didn't come out, then it wouldn't be my first EP, if that makes any sense. Like the next thing I would release would be. So it's an important sort of stepping stone to get through. I feel like you just have to get through it, like the first couple things. Even escapism was just like a little bit more intricate, but um, the sort of inspiration behind that whole EP was um, just taking one day of my life at that time and writing it from the start of the day to the end of the day,
End of the
and
day.
that was quite a nice way to restrict myself and be like, okay, so this theme at the start of the day is all nice because I'm like just waking up and stuff, and then I used to have like a desk job in an office and I kind of hated it. So I would write melodies and stuff in my head whilst I was at that job, and I'd kind of remember them and then figure them out when I got home. So I would write little parts of the EP whilst I was at work, and then the two middle songs are kind of based off my day at that job, which I kind of hated, which is quite a reason why like that EP is a bit darker sounding. Um, and then the last track, The Havens, when I finally get back home and stuff. So that was a pretty easy one to write, just because the concept, even though it's quite simple, is easy to write around because you can be like, when I wake up, I'm happy. When I'm at work, I'm sad. So that's pretty easy, like moods to lean into for songs and stuff. And then, yeah, when you get home, you're happy again. So the Haven's a bit more like triumphant sounding and stuff. And yeah, I mean, after that, I kind of went into a bit of a writing slump and really struggled to write anything I was happy with. So the Bergamot took me probably a year to write,
Damn.
which is insane because it's not even it's a really simple song. Again, it's sort of based around two ideas, like the chorus in 7/8 and then the sort of verse that has like this repeating rhythmic thing that kind of crosses over a bar as like a simple motif. Um, so that went through a lot of revisions. I tried real drums on that and it didn't work out. Just they sounded great, but I just felt like I wanted to have more of that sort of polished sound, and I guess I found that I could do that with Get Good Drums. So even on Bergamot, it was I think it was Umansky bass when it first came out, and then Get Good Drums, and then obviously the rest was me and stuff, and as well as Rowan on keys. He did a lot of the layers. So
Nice.
that song did take a long time, and then being able to get Pliny to do the guest solo was really cool. So I definitely want Bergamot to have a home on the album. So what I've done with Bergamot, it's not it's not like it's going to be re-released in a way on the album, but I've just sort of updated the mix so it sounds like the album, and I
I
think
see.
yeah. So it's the same song. Everything is. I wanted to keep all the stems the same, but I updated the drums, like swapped out the kick and snare and all of the rest of the kit, to be a perfect match for
Cohesive.
the.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You get it right. So it's like you want it to sound like the rest of the album. So it's kind of like Bergamot 2.0 when it comes out, but it's essentially the same. But I think if you compare the two mixes, like the first Bergamot is very thin and brittle sounding, and then this new one's quite lush and fat, with much bigger drums. Even though all the stems are the same, I just think the sort of tonal palette of it is a lot better. Um, which is funny because it took me about 10 minutes to make those changes, even though the original song took me a year to write, which is just I think indicative of how much you can learn, after the fact. And yeah, since then, like I've been writing a lot after Bergamot. The always like the plan was to always write that song as like the lead single and then have some sort of album come out like soon afterwards, like 6 months afterwards, and have it be like the lead single. But I'd written, yeah, so many ideas that I just kind of hated, and just didn't want to use. And I was really struggling to find my kind of voice and what I wanted to say because I felt like for a lot of it, I was just imitating a lot of other people and a lot of bands and a lot of other artists. And I feel like that wasn't genuinely my sort of like voice that I wanted to convey in pieces of music. And it was only when I started writing um, new music after that that I started thinking, well, I could actually put together a bit of an album here. Um, so, I mean, I literally finished it like 2 weeks ago and sent it off for mastering, and it's like, it's like 37 minutes of music or something. So it's the longest body of work.
Nice.
Yeah, it's the longest body of work I've ever done. And there's loads of friends, loads of guests on there, and I'm really proud of what I've been able to finally achieve. Like I still did everything myself, and I think in between Bergamot and the album that will come out at some point, I don't know. Um, I think I really got into like
Social
or
media.
yeah, social media as well as doing a lot of demo songs and work for brands and stuff. Um, and I think that really pushed me as a like to to try and stretch my sort of songwriting limbs in a way, to try things that I felt like I could get away with on a like a little demo song because it's not as serious, so I would actually do things that I thought were less good, like, oh, here's this like silly rip-off Dream Theater unison thing that I've come up with, or let's do it for a fun demo song, and then I'd actually flesh out the entire thing with full orchestra, like drums, bass, full guitars and layers and stuff, and I'd be like, actually, this is really cool, so maybe I could keep a little part of this and use this. But I've always struggled with that, and I think I'm just about turning the corner on that. Of if I sit down and I'm writing something for the album mindset up here, I just have this awful time where I hate everything I come
Yeah.
up with. You get it, right? You know what I'm
I,
saying?
it happened to me. It
Okay,
happened to me.
okay, cool. So I think the trick is to get around it is to actually lie to yourself and fool yourself and say, this isn't for the album. I'm actually just having fun. If it's good, I'll put it on Instagram or something. And if I like it, I'll put it on Instagram or whatever. And then that's what it's for. That's where it's going. Nothing else is going to happen to it. And you have to literally tell yourself that. Like, so some of the riffs I've written that I thought, oh, this is so silly. Like, why would I do like a swung riff with a cowbell and like on a split coil and like I'd come up with it and actually be like, whoa, this has actually been really fun, and everyone seems to really like it and wants to hear more of that. So maybe I actually could take some elements of that and use it for either the basis of a song or like part of a bigger piece of music that you could use. And in doing that, I've learned like a lot of the stuff that I have written when the pressure's off, um, and you actually unlock a lot of potential that is or it is still in there. You're just setting yourself like way too high like standards for no reason. It's just
True.
it's just you kind of in your head saying this isn't good enough, this isn't good enough. But you have to try loads of stuff to be able to find just the one or two things that have worked really well. Because if it doesn't work well, then well, that's fine. It's okay. You have still written music on that any given day. You have still composed something. You've still stretched your muscles in terms of like what you're writing and stuff, and you'll still be learning things. So you've learned that you didn't like what you came up with. That's great. Then you can push yourself in a better direction the next day. But if you tell yourself, "Oh, I'm not going to write anything today because I'm not in the mood," well, then you're kind of on Groundhog Day. You're just waking up in the same place as a creative person every day until you start just, I don't know, just trying to write something. I got to that point where I was just like, I'm going to have to start writing something every day. And some of the ideas that came out actually ended up on the album. There's one song that was kind of like this throwaway idea, and it's one of my favorite sort of grooves that I've got on the album. And
Damn.
it, yeah, yeah, it's so weird, like what you can actually do if you get out your own way, because you're probably the only person in your own way telling you that you're not good enough, or like telling you that the idea isn't good enough. But if you just step aside and just let the flow happen, then you'll just come up with something cool. I'm sure of it. And that's luckily like the place that I've been able to get to. But it did got, I mean, it took a long time.
I see what you mean. And there are like two sides of the, so one is creative inspiration that you take from other people, and second is reflective inspiration that when you have written down an idea and you put drums and bass to it, you feel like, oh shoot, this has a whole groove now. We can add layers to it, and we can, like, extract motifs from the chords and like make a melody out of it, and we can make an entire song out of it. And when we do that, and I mean it happens to me too, like, yeah, even for you, like whenever you come up with riffs, it's never like, drums and bass, it's always guitar. And when you hear that in solo, you don't actually 100% realize the potential of it, but when you put it with drums and bass and a layer, that's when you start to get the feel. And for me personally, what I think, it's more about like, commitment to a particular idea rather than the idea itself, because if you commit hard, you can make it work.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the thing I've found is when you actually write something a little bit more simple on the guitar first, it just lends itself a little bit better to translating like faster into any DAW that you use, but I use Logic. So when I get it into Logic, I can add drums faster. I can hear the accents quicker. I can hear where I want things to fall a little bit better. And I can always go back and make the riff more intricate. But when you're sat there and you're trying to play something that you can't quite play yet, because it might be like some, I don't know, some sort of crazy little fill that you're playing on guitar to try and lead to the next chord, but you can't quite get it in time. So you're not really getting a semblance of groove in your playing. But if you just keep things a little bit more simple and go for a general feel, you will always be able to go and add the detail in later. So that's where I usually start these days. And sometimes that's usually where I end as well. Like some of the riffs on the album are really simple, but really effective in conveying some sort of feeling that's like quite kinetic and has this sort of movement to it. And I think I was leaning into like simpler ideas on the album instead of just I can play lots of notes, so I will, for no good reason, right? Like it doesn't convey anything, and it has its place. And there are moments which are like really nerdy, proggy, silly, but it's not like constant. There's a lot of just like simple, heavy, groove focused things on the album. And I think I've been able to take a step back as a guitarist and maybe approach things more as a producer, a composer, and say to myself, look, you could flex on this riff, but is it the best for the song? Like, what's going to convey the best emotion for this song right now? Is it like heavy, sludgy, slow, quite drunk sounding? Then maybe we don't need, a 30-second note run just for the sake of it. Maybe it just has to be simple and effective. And there will be those moments later in the track or the next track or whenever to sort of flex those muscles that you want to do, all the cool things that you can that you've spent the time learning to do. And I think having that balance is something that I've been able to, well, I feel like I've been able to get better at. We'll see, like, if, once people hear what I've been working on, and people can see what they think. But I think I've achieved my vision of what I wanted to do. So, at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. Like, just write the music that you really want to hear, or at least want to write. And I don't think anything else really matters in a way.
True. And so, what you wanted to say was that you have picked your moments where you wanted to, like, show your technical prowess, but for the most part, you wanted to show your songwriting prowess, and that's really awesome because it's for every like, every guitar player who eventually becomes like a super nice musician in general. Like everyone goes to that the stage that you have gone through, and like, that it's shreddy business in the start, but then like Paul Gilbert, in my opinion, it was the first person in the entire scene to go through that, like, whole arc of, like, being the shreddy guy, and now he plays one note melodies with his cat on his lap, and he loves it, and I love it, and everyone loves it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, I think something really clicks, but you have to go through that part, like, being the guy who practices sweep picking, 16 note sweep picking licks for 2 hours every day to get to a point where, like, okay,
Yeah,
it's not that there are more things that serve a bigger purpose than just that. And yeah, it's cool to practice always, like, it's so cool to shred, but shredding is not the criteria. And also because that initially it's just the fact that we would like to gain the attention and the validation of our peers, but as in when we grow as musicians, we want to cater to people who don't know nothing about music but still can enjoy our music. And the plus point being that if you know what music is, you will enjoy it more because it has more depth in harmony and like rhythms and stuff, right?
yeah. I think it has a tendency to sound a bit more mature as well, like actual pieces of music rather than just like etudes or guitar exercises with drums and bass added. I feel like those things definitely have their place, but they don't really, as far as I'm concerned, they don't really appeal to me as a listener. So at the end of the day, when I'm writing music, I'm going to listen to it. So I don't want to listen to shreddy moments for 3 minutes, and um, I don't really listen to that much prog anymore outside of the stuff
Same.
that I write. I just feel like a lot of people, if you do that, that's cool because you have to. I think you have to love prog to get into it, to want to write it, to want to learn it. But there's definitely there's like a crossroads point where it's you actually steer away from listening to other musicians. And yeah, when like what my friends send me stuff and like unreleased stuff, I'm always going to listen to it, and like it always sounds insane. And people are working on amazing stuff all the time, but I don't really sit on Spotify anymore and listen to like Haken or Dream Theater. Like I love all those guys, but I feel like if you just listen to the same stuff that you're trying to write, like a lot of the work that you end up making is quite derivative. So I listen to a lot of random stuff these days, like country, um, pop, and a lot of orchestral stuff as well. And I think I like the things that happen in those genres, and I want to add them into the things that I'm trying to write
Yes.
as well.
Yes. I totally get that because that's the thing that if we just listen to prog, like, we will, like, you are what you consume, right? So every single, like, pioneer of the genre, they have brought something that was not in the genre into the genre, right? So if we just listen to, like, things that are already in the genre, we won't be able to innovate. I mean, for some people innovation is not like a big thing, but for, I guess, for you, or to some extent, like, having your own sound or your own identity musically, that when people hear your stuff, they are like, okay, this sounds like Connor, this is sounds something like Connor would do, etc. Like I see that a lot with Ollie, and I have so much respect for him that he knows what he wants, and even if it takes him million years to write new music, he gets it done.
And it does take him a million years.
Yeah, yeah.
I love Ollie to bits. I think he's another guy that I grew up like a couple of years ago. I won't say grew up, but like a couple of years ago, like a lot of the stuff that he was doing is was really influential to the things that I'm doing. Even now, like I think the stuff that he plays is just so like I don't know. I honestly do not know a more like rhythmically in tune brain than his. He has such a feel for groove, accents, meter and timing, and how to convey all of that in a really cool and unique way. I don't know anyone better than him, and I mean he'll probably hate me for giving him compliments, but I am anyway. So he's just like got one of those gifted minds to figure that sort of stuff out, and I find it really cool that some of the stuff that he's playing is insanely technical, but it still conveys a really really musical groove, and it still
Yeah,
falls across the bars in a really nice way, even though what he's actually doing is, you'd really struggle to replicate unless you spent a lot of time learning it. So I've always admired what he's been doing. I just hope that he writes more music because the EP, what did he release? Like 16 minutes of music or something? I
yeah.
need more than that.
Yeah, I just told him that like Adam was on the podcast after him, and I was like, one aviation song is bigger than all his entire EP.
That's so true.
So yeah, man, I am very curious about like knowing that when you got Pliny on board for Bergamot, like
Mm.
were you shocked, or like did I think I know that you persistently asked him several times, and only after that was he like, okay, I'll do it.
It was it wasn't exactly like that. It was just very like casual actually,
Okay,
which is
I see.
weird, which is really strange. I think, well, I'd met Pliny a bunch of times before asking him to do that solo, so I'd consider him a friend, and I think when I asked him and reached out, he said, "Yeah, I'll do it." It just took him a while after saying yes,
I see.
because
He's a busy
you
man.
know he's got so much going on. Like, what's he doing like a stupid guest solo for me for? But very kindly offered to do it, and it was just a matter of waiting. Like, it took, I think it probably took about, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months for him to finally send the solo in. But I mean, it was absolutely worth it
Worth it.
because
Yeah,
yeah, the
totally.
solo is, I mean, it's such a great solo. Like, and I knew from the very start that that song was gonna hopefully have him on it. So I was kind of banking on. I wrote the song and I was like, this is gonna have Pliny on it, and then I asked him. So if he said no, I would have had to figure something else out. But luckily, he said yes, and it all did work out in the end. And yeah, I think it came together really well. And I mean, he's just one of the most pure souls, and he's just so casual about everything. It's kind of scary, but
I
he
know,
just
right?
is. He's just very chilled out, and he was just like, "Yeah, I'll do it." And I was like, "Oh, cool." But yeah, that was it was super easy. Just literally Instagram messages, and then yeah, job done.
So awesome, man. And I think Bergamot really helped, like, because I know a lot of people who didn't know about you before Bergamot, but after Bergamot is when people started, I would assume, know about you more. And that begs the question that, internet fame, like, you must have, like, even like right now, you have like 83 thousands of followers on Instagram or something. But
Yeah.
I know this for a fact that internet fame guarantees nothing. And I want to know from you why that is true.
Okay. Well, that's a great question, man. I mean, the whole thing is strange, right? I think the age of Instagram and having all these like having a following is obviously, it's been a massive plus for my sort of trajectory as a musician. Like, without the internet, I just, you know I grew up in the northwest of England with not much prospects for someone who was into the music that I'm into. Like, I must have known, yeah, I had like two or three close friends whilst I was studying that were into prog and stuff. But it's really difficult to play shows and stuff around the area that I grew up because it's just like there's no demand for it. So having social media, you know, it's been a massive plus because I've been able to find like the people who do really enjoy um, whatever you want to call it, prog, instrumental guitar stuff, or whatever. Having that has been great, and I didn't really mean for it to happen. I just started posting just little covers, really, like intervals, Pliny, Dream Theater covers. Initially, maybe one or two original ideas. I started mostly with covers just because I liked playing guitar. So I would like try and film something and get a really good take, and I'd be like, okay, great, that was a great take. I just want to log that kind of like a diary or like a portfolio. So I just literally put it up to Instagram and just be like, hey, I worked on this today. Like, it kind of, yeah, I did it in like quite a personal way. Um, and then I suppose by accident, like it started getting like, like 100 likes, 150, 250 likes, and then people start following you. And I think from there it sort of snowballed once you get like a little bit of momentum. I was posting like every day, like that was a bit of a challenge I set myself when I started Instagram, which was like 2017, which was a long time ago. But I think yeah, the internet fame thing is quite strange. I think I've been trying to move away from, I don't know, it's you're kind of walking on a tightrope because maybe some people will know me for making videos and being more of uh I hate to say influencer, but some people will see you like that if you just end up doing a lot of stuff on the internet. And it's really difficult to change people's minds about that. Um,
Yeah,
uh, and it's difficult to step into more of a musician who just happens to be online. So I've been mindful of that. Like the past, I don't know, I'd say like the past 6 months, I've been a bit more mindful of not just becoming a content creator because I accidentally fit the bill. Like I love filming stuff, I love cameras, I love lighting, and I like logging my playing. And it just so happens to be that a really good way to store videos for free is Instagram. So, it's actually like free storage. So yeah, I guess other people seeing it is cool, but it's not the reason I did it. And I sort of accidentally fell into making good videos that like looked pretty nice. So brands that would reach out and be like, "Oh, hey, you got a number of likes on this. Like, would you like to try this pedal and make a video with it?" And then all these things start coming through the door, and you're like, "Whoa, is this what it means to be a musician? This is cool." And then it's actually not what it means to be a musician. It's more. It is more content creation. You're kind of doing organic marketing, and I didn't even really think about it until I paused and thought, oh, yeah, like I have a following and I might get sent a piece of gear or a piece of software to do a little thing with, but what's the sort of, I don't know, I'm still figuring all this stuff out even as I say it, but what's the sort of legacy you want to leave behind? Like, do you
that's
want
true.
to,
That's true.
yeah, do you want to be like the person who just did content, but never had the time to write an album? And that was always me. An email had come in over the weekend. Hey, we want you to do this and this, and I'd be on it. I'd film the video, I'd get it out. They'd be really happy. And then another brand would be like, "Oh, hey, we've got this new guitar coming out. Let's do this and this and this, and let's have this for like the launch." And I'd be like, "Yeah, great, I'm on it." And you spend all this time writing all these pieces of things for the internet, really. Um, and that's another reason why I hadn't written anything for ages. Like I still technically haven't because nothing's come out yet. But like Bergamot's my only song in like 3 years, really. Um, and you just put all your eggs into one basket, which is like social media and like building your online presence. And then I think I've taken a step back this year and thought exactly like your question was asking. Well, what's the value of it? Like if Instagram blew up tomorrow and disappeared, what would I be like? So you have it's a scary thought because I think a lot of people really do exist online and don't really do much outside of that. And I'm
Yeah,
trying to change that a little bit with writing some music. So if like Instagram did go, then at least I've got an album out that I'm really, really proud of. So we're getting there. But yeah, it's a hard one to quantify. I also think it's a bit of it can be a slippery slope. Like it's so easy to go on Instagram and compare yourself to just literally like the top 1% of people because the most insane content is always going to be at the top. So if you're interested in guitars, you're going to see like the best people who are just absolutely killing it. And by all means, they should continue doing that. They're like, you look at people like Spiro and, like Baxty, who are just absolutely mega players. And I watch them, I'm like, wow, okay, I'm nowhere near that good. So you have to try try not to compare because everybody's doing their own thing. Like Baxty's journey as a musician is going to be completely different to mine and
true.
anyone else's sort of journey. So the only person you should ever really compare yourself with is yourself, because you, I, like I've not had the same life as Baxty. He's not had the same life as me. He's probably practiced way more. But I might have written more music than him. So
Music, yeah.
it's all like what you want to do with yourself, and try not to do that, because I've had people message me and say like, look, I've been trying to post more and I keep comparing myself to other people, and like, how can I get better? And it's like, well, first and foremost, you should only really want to do it because you want to, for you. And I think a lot of people seem to forget that you should try your best to enjoy the process as well. The process can be difficult, like learning an instrument is really hard. Um, but you should try and enjoy like the mini victories, like you nail one phrase, or you write a really cool melody that you're proud of. Um, and I just think like, yeah, I've taken a step back from social media a bit. I'm still doing things here and there, but I'm trying to sort of reshape what I guess I want to be known as, because I guess I am just probably known as like one of the people who posts cool videos, like hopefully. Um, so I'm trying to just reshape that a little bit, you know?
Bro, that's lovely to hear, because I have a few thoughts I want to get across before I say anything else. Firstly, it's the fact that, like you said, it's a slippery slope. So it totally depends on what an artist is in their artist life. If it's a young artist, like, they would hop on to stuff. Like, if a company reached out to me asking for demos, I haven't done a lot of demos for products, so I would be happy to be on board, because that would be experience that I will get of working with brands. Secondly, it also comes about the privilege of, like, where you stand as a musician. If you have uh, a gig going on, and like, social media is just something that you do for fun, I mean, you can surely, say no to stuff. But if that's your like main thing, that, getting the brand commissions and stuff, then it becomes really hard for people, like, those people to say no to stuff, because that's their bread and butter. So yeah, man, it really is a difficult question to answer, but and totally subjective to everyone. And what you said about, well, like, leaving a legacy of some sort, of like, how you would want to be known, like, that's really important, and I think about that a lot. That, and I think Ollie said it on the podcast, that people still listen to, like, Thriller as an album, and stuff like that. Even after, like, people have passed away, their music still lives on.
Yeah, it does. I think I've been able to steer clear of it, to be honest. I think I accidentally have quite a good sort of mindset that yeah, I really enjoy small challenges that I have set myself in the past, like, yeah, posting every day. Um, and I don't know what drives me to do those things, but I think I just enjoy the challenge for myself. Um,
Fair enough.
but yeah, like the latest challenge was finishing an album, which I'd never ever done before, and that's done now. So now, you've caught me at a really funny time, because I'm like, what do I do now? And that's like what I'm still just trying to figure out. Like, so the album's done, it's being mastered, it comes back, and then you have to do all the stuff that you do, the hoops you jump through to release something, like film a music video, whatever, marketing, that sort of stuff. And then like that's all the kind of stuff that I mean, I know it's necessary, but I kind of hate. But yeah, I think once it's out, I need to sort of reassess what I want to do. I definitely want to write something less serious than the album, because I was listening a lot to Bill Murray. I don't know if you've listened to that band, but
Pilmer is awesome.
yeah. So I was
Yeah.
listening to Bill Murray, and I just sort of realized like how much fun he's having. Like, even the song names are just like messing around,
Yeah,
but
crank
yeah,
hog, and
yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's just really fun. But you actually listen to the music, and it's like, this is like top quality music, especially like the new album. Like, well, I don't know how new it is anymore, but American Motorsports is just like, some of the songs are just amazing songs, and he's just having a really good time. So I think I actually realized I just want to take myself a little bit less seriously, because at the end of the day, like, we're writing like nerdy prog music. So, it, I think a lot of people want to get very, very intense about it. Like, this piece of music changed my life, and it's like the most personal I've ever been. And then it's like Bill Murray, just like,
yeah.
just, but the same thing happens. Music gets released, and I just really vibed with like that. I wouldn't probably take it as far as someone like I've forgotten the main guy, Johnny something behind Bill Murray. But I think just taking yourself a little bit less seriously is quite nice. I think from other people to see, just be like, oh, this guy's just having fun. That's nice. So I think I have this insane idea. It's not actually insane because lots of people have done it before, but I really want to do a Christmas EP, which because think about this, right? How many people have actually done like a prog Christmas album
No one.
EP? No one's done it, right?
And you have a head start because you literally had a track last year on JTC for a Christmas thing. Like,
Yeah,
bro, like capitalize on it ASAP.
I know. I really want to do it, and just like the time of the year's coming, and I'm just like, I might write a Christmas EP and just have it be really fun. Like, still have like the the get good drums and parallax on bass, but Christmas. And
Yeah.
I think that's just making me a little bit excited to just like how serious is it going to be? Jingle bells, but it's like with a DJ spell. Do you know what I mean? It's Jen and stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think people have done like one or two tracks before, but to do like a little EP, I think would just be just really fun. Like, I feel like I need to give the prog nerds something to listen to at Christmas because I'm sick of listening to all of the same stuff. So if it doesn't exist, go and make it. So I'm gonna go and make it, and then it might happen. I think
Please.
what I want to do is write it this Christmas and then release it 2025 Christmas. So I mean, you're the first to hear, and I guess that anyone who's listening is now going to know that this is happening. So I've really shot myself in the foot because,
Now you got to
and
commit.
yeah, now the commitment has to be made. Um, so I think I'm going to do like three original pieces, like just inspired by Christmas sounds, and maybe like two covers. Because I think what can happen with Christmas things is like you just do all covers, and it's like, oh, it's just Jingle Bells, but with China on the pulse, and it's like, I think I want to be a bit more creative than that and really explore like orchestra, like seven strings, sleigh bell samples, and just
Yeah.
stanky grooves and see what happens. I don't know. Maybe something
Uh,
fun will happen.
do you, by any chance, use Spitfire Labs for your production and stuff?
I do use Spitfire. I've not used Labs in a couple of years. I used the BBC Symphony Orchestra for all of my orchestra.
Okay, so here's some news for you. So they revamped their entire library with new UI and more libraries, and there are literally
Oh,
so many even for the free version, like there are so many cool libraries as like just for Christmas purposes. They have a literal
oh.
ensemble, Christmas ensemble and sort of stuff,
I
and
had
that's
some
pretty
that,
cool.
yeah, I had some from Spitfire on Labs that are Christmas a while ago, but I don't think I need to look into that again because I didn't install them on this new computer that I'm working on. So yeah, I have to look into that for sure because I definitely need like some cool samples to work with for the Christmas vibes. But
Yeah,
thanks for the
and
tip.
the lovely part is I think more companies should start doing that for their sample libraries. Like they for a sample, like how the samples sound. They have a sample piece of music that if you press play before downloading that particular sample library, it has one of like few of the best sample music that I've heard. Like that instantly makes you want to download that particular library,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
just very inspiring to see that okay, so I can get these sounds if I use this particular library.
Yeah, yeah, they are good at that. I remember when I got into orchestra, it was always going to be like Spitfire that I got into. I actually had like a really long phone call with a really lovely composer called Jesse Zaretti. Um, eh,
Jesse Zuretti from he runs the URM, right?
I think he's involved with them, and I think he does like a lot of stuff with George Lever and like Doom sort of Argent metal stuff.
Ah,
But he's done stuff with Marvel and done stuff with other brands and companies, and he's
wow.
yeah, he's like massive into orchestra. So he was like, you know, I'd asked him for some advice because I was getting into it, and it's also like quite scary because you've got like 34 instruments, and it's like how do I get this? Like, what do they all do? Like, I knew strings, woodwinds, brass, but I didn't actually really understand much more than that. So having that phone call with him was like really helpful because he was just like super kind and offered loads of advice, and he recommended Spitfire to me. So I delved into that, and I spent a long time with the Discover Orchestra, which is free from their
Yep.
website, um, and wrote a few things with that. And it was eventually when I just decided to bite the bullet, and I think it was like a Black Friday sale. Just grabbed the not the full insane version, like the professional thing. I just got the core, which does what I need it to for now. I kind of wish it had solo string patches, but um, I think it's such a specific use case that I think the price the professional one costs is not really worth it. Also, it's like
Justifiable. Yeah.
yeah, it's like 600 gigabytes of samples, and I'm like,
That's insane.
ooh, yeah, I don't know. Like the one I've got is like 26, and that's doable. So yeah, I stick. I've been using that. Like that's all over the album. Like there's one piece on the album that was literally I hit record with a guitar track with no click, just started playing and sort of like I kind of referenced the Haven melody and then just wanted to see what happens. And then I added orchestra in after that, so it's like completely off grid. And like that piece is one that just I don't know, just one of my favorite little things I've written because I wrote it in a day, and that was just so opposite to how I usually write stuff. So it was nice to do that and really just delve into like that sort of I don't know about you, like the Skyrim soundtrack written by
I was
Jeremy.
literally listening to it 2 hours ago.
It's just the best, right? Like the soundscapes and the textures. I think the word texture always comes to mind when I think about the Skyrim soundtrack. Like you like some pieces like Secunda and Far Horizons have just got so much to them, but it's like literally just like a held note. Like
Yep.
and it's just like how how is this happening? So I wanted to try something like that with this little piece I was doing. So yeah, I really got into that sort of thing, and I think it helped sort of add a bit of like a unique flavor to like the prog thing that was happening on like so I kind of melded them together. So you've got like full orchestra, uh, and then like the usual stuff, you know, bass,
True.
drums, guitars, and I know that God, I'm not the first to do orchestra with like metal, but I mean, Devin Townsend's always been a massive inspiration, so it's kind of taken from that like school, that like wall of sound sort of thing. So there's a lot going on the album, and I mean, I'm excited to have it done. I'm excited to get it out. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't know when it's gonna happen, but like whenever when it happens, it happens. You'll know, but I think it's probably gonna be 2025. I think. Like, I think there's
Yeah,
just
that
too
that's
much.
fair. Yeah, you'll get some time because if you have put your heart and soul into it, it just makes sense to like market it to the best of your ability. And the magazines and stuff like they at least take around 2 or more months to get back to you, and everyone's just like turned off during the December month because it's holidays. So it makes a lot of sense why you would want to go with a 2025 date at this point. And yeah, man, something about Skyrim's like male vocals is just so reminiscent of going on a war that it gets you pumped up super hard. And yeah, so I this is a very different question, but Hugh had like a proper job at JTC, right? So this is not about the job, but this is about like while working at JTC, what are some very key skills that you have picked up that you are like applying for your personal brand right now, and that just makes things very easy for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think what having a full-time job taught me was that like you have to have a lot of discipline, um, and you have to be able to work on projects that you might not want to all the time. Like you have to do the things that you don't want to do always. And that even applies now. Like all I want to do is write music, but no, like I have to wake up every day, reply to emails, handle messages, do accounting and all that sort of stuff as a independent musician. And I think having a full-time job really taught me that it's important to have some sort of routine in your day to day, because it's very easy to do music full time like I am now and sort of wake up and just not really have a plan. So I'm very like I try to be good with planning as much as I can. So like yeah, I knew that I just took a week off on holiday. And I knew that the album, like I said to myself, like this album's getting done. I'm sending it off for mastering before I go. So I worked and worked and made sure that that would happen. And having that discipline to say, like, no, no matter what, like, I'm my own boss. Because at the end of the day, if it doesn't get done, then the only person I've let down is myself. So I think, yeah, I would never want to let down my boss at JTC. So why would I be okay with letting myself down? And that's something a lot of people struggle to get over, because the person I think most people are okay with letting down is themselves. Yeah, exactly. So I think trying to get over that hurdle, I still struggle with it, but just trying to be mindful and setting yourself up for success. So like taking your week, just opening a calendar app, whatever it is, Apple Calendar or whatever, planning out Monday, Tuesday, I'm going to write the final song of the album, for example. Wednesday, I've had Strandberg. They want a little piece of video that what they want doing for in 2 weeks' time. So I need to get that done on Wednesday because I'm taking a week off. Thursday, I need to mix the songs that I wrote on Monday, Tuesday, and then Friday, I need to catch up on emails, do admin and that sort of stuff, and then post a video or something, which always takes ages. So, like, and that's a week. Like all of a sudden, your week is blocked out, and if you don't do that, you can very easily open a week and be like, what am I doing this week? I don't know, and it gets very overwhelming because I think well, most of our lives, we always have someone telling us what to do. So, like, whether that's a boss, parents, whoever it is, there's someone directing us in the way that they think we should go. So when it comes to you having to do that, it's a bit of a strange transition that, like, yeah, I mean, I quit my job at JTC in February, and I was, immensely grateful for what it had taught me. And I guess on a more practical sense, like, I was mostly the video editor at JTC for a couple of years, so that I got a lot better at editing video, and being able to have the discipline to work on pretty big edits. Eventually, I kind of became like the track writer for JTC, which was kind of fun. So like a couple of the collab series where, like there's 5 different guitarists over one
Yep,
track.
yep, yep.
Like I wrote the past 3, I want to say, the backing track for them at least, which was fun. Like the Fusion one was really fun because again, like it was really fun because I'd never written Fusion before properly. So having to play like and having something that would work over like these 5 guitarists that know Fusion. You've got like Josh Meader, Jack Gardner, Matteo Mancuso, and it's like
No
these are all
way.
like I don't think Tom was on that one. I think it was George Karianis who was the fifth
Ah, yes,
player
yes.
on that one. And having these 5 players, it was kind of weird. Like I had to write the backing for all 5 of them, so I'd kind of thought like, okay, well, what's Matteo going to want to solo over? So I sort of came up with this like ostinato on bass, and then like chords that shifted harmony around. Like so, the bass was like a pedal note, and he really vibed with that. And then I think Jack's backing, I came up with this bass line, and I was like, right, well, I really want real bass. Like it has to be. So I had to like learn how to slap bass a little bit,
Slap.
and I'd never really done it before. So um, yeah, and then it might have been Max Ostro actually, the last solo or
Bro,
something.
Max Ostro, that guy.
Yeah, that was
Come
it.
on.
Yeah, it was Max, and he wanted he wanted disco, like disco funk, like 4 on the floor, like so I wrote a really simple like bass line for him, and then Yeah, he killed it. But that all that sort of stuff with JTC was immensely helpful. I think it's really shaped my mindset in a really positive way. And obviously, I still release masterclasses with JTC and everything. So that's always going to be something that I want to do. So although I don't like edit videos full time as a staff member anymore, I'm still going to release. I did a like a prog soloing sort of thing after I'd left anyway, yeah, around March time, and I think I definitely want to do like the album, like transcribe it and everything, and get it released through JTC, and I might do like a learn to play or something to help release it as well. So yeah, that's just like another thing to go along with the album that I need to get planned in and stuff. But yeah, that I'd say like those are the main things like JTC working there at least has taught me for sure.
Would you say branding, personal branding, is also one part of that? Because I've seen, like, your video look quite consistent in terms of your color grade. Then, like, you have started to use film burns as transitions, is something else that I've noticed. And like your logo is like a proper logo now, like it's CK. So I've noticed all of those stuff. So like that's why I'm asking that. And so,
Yeah,
and even font, right? Font plays a huge role too, right?
yeah. So my logo was designed by Matt from JTC. So Matt's kind of like the artwork mastermind. So all of the masterclasses that get released have obviously got to have like artwork and all the sort of videos and assets created for them, and they're all like bespoke made, tailor made for each artist and signed off. And it's a real collaborative sort of process where like Matt will mock up like a design and then like it'll be sent off to an artist. For example, someone like Ollie Steele, who is an artist for JTC, and Ollie will say, "This is great. Let's just change the font here. I want my logo here rather than here," and then it'll go back and forth, back and forth. So it's really, really nice and collaborative. And it was Matt who designed my logo because he originally was a logo designer.
Oh,
So he offered to do it, and I was like, yeah, great. Like, let's give it a go. And it was, I mean, all credit to him. Like, he's an absolute wizard. So he just drew two lines. He just went like that and then that. And I was like, that's the logo. And he just drew it with a pen on a piece of paper. And I was like, that's the logo. Whatever it looks like, style wise, block, like curved or anything, it has to be that and then just that, like, because you can so clearly tell that it's CK just from two
yep.
lines, and then I really liked that sort of idea, so we rolled with that, and then it was like maybe like the fourth logo that he came up with, but based on those two things that we went with, like it's sort of like a modern, and even the font he came up with as well, like a modern, sleek, clean sort of vibe. I think matches what I like to go for. Quite well. And it's all just, I think, you're asking about personal branding and stuff. I think it's all just based on personal intuition and how you sort of want to portray yourself. I quite like, I really love cameras, lighting and stuff. And that it didn't really come from JTC. That just came from more of a personal sort of interest that I really had for cameras and stuff. Like I love, even now I love photography and taking pictures of stuff. And I always love trying to get my videos to look as good as possible. Um, and even then, like you compare yourself to people like Clayton King, who's just one of the best in the game right now.
Clayton, yeah.
Yeah, and he's such a nice guy to go as well. It's like so annoying. He's got like no, no.
Exactly. I mean, I wanted to get a new camera, so I just asked him because, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, you can't go wrong with this camera if you buy it." And like, yeah, seriously, I mean, my video quality, like, has gotten through the roof after that. So
Yeah.
it's funny how like, normal he is for what he.
Yeah, exactly. He's such a nice guy, and you look at his videos and they look. I mean, you would watch half a second and you can tell it's Clayton, even if all you see is a guitar, because it's just got such a style to it, and I really admire that. So, I think I try to do my own thing in my own way, and obviously everything's always filmed in this room, so it's always going to have like this certain look to it. And I sort of built this room from the ground up, like me and my partner moved in, and this was just like a white box when we got here. And slowly but surely, as you can see, like you start hanging the guitars up and you paint the walls and stuff, and you get the acoustic treatment in and all that sort of stuff. And I was always mindful that it had to look pretty nice on camera as well. So that's why even tiny things like I can't have cables around. It's just again maybe my brain, but I have to have like really neat cables. Like I had to get a desk where I could hide the cables so they weren't on camera. Um, all that sort of little stuff that I guess again it links back to that sort of that intuition. Like, how do you want to convey what you're like? Like, I like things to be quite neat, so I'm not going to have cables and stuff all around the background of my videos, so people can all like immediately see like, oh, it looks quite clean, and quite modern. And I think that on one level it goes quite well with the music and stuff, like quite modern, proggy sort of guitar music. So yeah, you sort of learn what works for your brand. I call it brand. Um, for most people, if you're in a band, it's probably going to be more applicable to what works for the band that you're in and what sort of image you want to convey there. But it's a weird thing when you're a solo artist, because you don't really have a band to hide behind. You are the sort of the thing,
Yeah.
the brand as well as the person. You look at Pliny, and Pliny, for all intents and purposes, it is a band. Like Pliny is a band. Simon Grove, Jake, and Chris, and him form Pliny the band. But Pliny's just a guy that also has to be, you know, he has to portray himself in a way that he would want to, because at the end of the day, he represents himself in a way. It's kind of
Yeah.
hard to detach from that when you're a solo artist. Like look at like David, David as well. He releases stuff as his name. I know he has Sorted as well, but um, when he releases stuff, it's all done under one name, and I think that's a really interesting thing. I just fell into it by accident. I just started releasing stuff with my name. I think actually, if I could probably go back and do it all again, I'd probably start a band, even if it was just mainly me. I think it just would be easier to market and stuff rather than just, you know, because I have people that come up to me and it's like, "What do you do?" And it's like, "Oh, I'm a guitarist." And it's like, "Oh, are you in a band?" And it's like, "Well, can't
It's
no."
hard to explain that.
Yeah, right. And it's like
It gets hard to
actually
explain.
not really, but I write my own music and stuff. So I think it's a bit more difficult to market when you're just a person. And yeah, I do everything. I was gonna master this album, but I decided at the last hour against it. So I was gonna literally do everything on this album, like mixing, producing, obviously playing guitars and stuff. Um, so I guess it's always just made sense to me to just have Connor Kaminski as the name. But I don't know if I'd actually genuinely recommend it for someone. I don't know. It depends what you want to do, I think.
Also depends
Um,
on how common your name is, because if you have your name like John or something, then you're gonna be you like SEO is not going to be favor full to you
yeah, yeah,
in that
that's a good
sense.
point. I didn't think of that. I just sort of went with it and didn't think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that, and also like whenever you release a song, try not to have it end with an is, like ectogenesis or something, or else it's gonna be swooped in under that too, even if like that's the vibe you wanted to go for. So
yeah,
it's hard, like I think a lot about like it's really arbitrary, but I think, okay, I have to make my song one word so that everyone gets it in one go. But sometimes then I have to let myself off that, why am I sacrificing on what I want to tell by just having it one word? Like, if I can do that with four words, why not do that, etc.,
yeah,
etc.
yeah.
I just wanted to, since we were talking about cameras, I just this is very, I'm curious that, do you like film emulations?
Um,
Because
in
you have a
what?
Fujifilm, and I think a Fujifilm camera comes with a film emulation section that you can have, like a Kodak 2383 print or something like that.
Yeah,
So I was just
yeah.
curious about that.
Yeah, I do use them actually. So for the main camera, I have it's actually pretty old now. an XS10 and I use the Eterna Cinema for all of my videos. So the videos have this one look to them, and it's kind of like Fuji's thing to have these film simulations um, in camera, I guess. So that's always going to be what the videos are filmed with. So even no matter what, like the white balance might change, the setup might change, the guitar and the like what I'm wearing might change, but at least the look is baked in. And I really like how Eterna Cinema looks. It's really it's really washed out, really grey, really low contrast, but it means when I come to color grade it, I've got quite a lot to work with. Um, but for the photography side of things, I used to edit my own photos and I used to shoot raw all the time. And it was only once I got my first Fuji that I realized, like, yeah, I actually could use JPEG recipes, which is where you sort of kind of pre-edit the photo. It's kind of like if you were shooting on film, like Kodak Gold always looks like Kodak Gold, um, and that sort of stuff. So that's the general idea with those sort of recipes. So I have like 7 recipes that I like to use on my X100V, and that's all I do now. I don't edit photos anymore. It was always taking so long to get photos that I liked the look of. Like I could still shoot raw images if I wanted to, but I usually just shoot JPEGs these days, and I have just a couple recipes that I really like to use. But the Fuji stuff, man. I mean, I've personally always loved using it. I know probably the more sensible option is to get into like Sony and their cameras and lenses, but I don't know. For me, I just really love. I just think they're just full of vibe. I don't
It
know how
has that
else.
vintage touch to it because Kodak are the guys that did Fujifilm, and having that sort of like backing with analog stuff that they can incorporate like with their film emulations. I think it's unparalleled. Like even if you use something like a dehancer, that's a plugin in DaVinci Resolve that allows you to do like grab some film stocks and use certain film emulation techniques. I don't really think even that can help you achieve the look that you would probably get from a film emulation made by the guys who had Kodak Gold, So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah. And I have a serious, like a little bit of serious question to ask you. It's about the leap of faith that you took of going full time with music.
Yeah.
And because I mean, what what was your thought process like when you decided that okay, this is what I'm going to do? Because it's daunting, like having some sort of conformity and having surety of what my next few months are going to look like is a relief in itself, and having that uncertainty is not everyone's cup of tea. So I
Yeah.
just want to ask you, and what was the tipping point for you? Was it a particular moment that you felt that okay, now's the time?
Um, okay. Yeah, great question. Um, I think I had reached a point maybe at the start of this year, maybe January, maybe just after Christmas. So January 2024, um, where I was about, I don't know, maybe like I'd written like one and a half songs for the album. So I had Bergamot. I always knew that I wanted to do like weave that into the whole album. So I had that, and I had like another song. And whilst I was enjoying working at JTC, I just felt like I was having obviously 8 hours a day at a full-time job. Um, and then what I would do is I would finish work, and then obviously, you've got all the life things that happen, like looking after the house, cleaning, whatever, seeing family, seeing friends, actually being a good person and stuff. So there's not much time left at the end of the day to like sit down and write. So I was actually really struggling to find the time to, yeah, just to carry on the album. And that was what was making me sort of like really upset in a way, because I was just like, I know I want to do this, but I don't think I have the time, because just, with the way that a typical job works, you have to be there for 8 hours a day or whatever. Um, and up until that point, January this year, I'd always been able to fit everything in that I wanted to. So, like everything up until then had been written outside of a full-time job. So Somnium, Escapism, Bergamot was always written, finish work, right, open up the music, like let's go, like let's figure this out. Like it was always done outside of those work hours. And it was only at this point where like I'd done all of the things that I had done, like Instagram videos, brand work, all that sort of stuff, written music. And I'd got to this sort of moment where I said to myself, I don't think this album's going to get done if I don't quit. And that realization is one really scary because you you are sat there thinking, well, the sensible thing for me and my partner is for me to have a full-time job because we have a house, there's bills to pay, and having that security is, invaluable as a young, like at our age, it's invaluable to have that sort of, yeah, no matter what happens, you'll probably have a job and you probably have the same amount of money that comes in every month. So for a long time, I was, trying to save up a little bit so that I could put aside. And then once I had like a little bit saved, then I could ideally take like a leap of faith, 6 months. And if it didn't work out, yeah, didn't work out. It's okay. Like it's fine. And it was actually, um, I over the past year, I've had a lot of tattoos done, which is it sounds like a leap, like what I'm talking about, but this all does link together. So I had a lot of tattoos, and it was actually talking to my tattoo artist, who's obviously another creative person, but in a very different sort of industry. And he was saying that he quit his job at the age of 37 to go and do
Oh,
tattooing. And I was just like,
dude,
wow,
at that age, you have kids and a family to look after too.
yeah, exactly. And he did it, and he was just like, mate, you can do it at any time. But from what I was telling him, he was like, but it sounds to me like you're ready. So just do it. And if it doesn't work out, just go and get another job and go back to how you've been doing things and then reevaluate. But if you don't try, then you'll always be sat there wondering, what if? And I was like, yeah, all right, fair. That's a fair point. That's actually a really good, yeah, good point you've made. So he didn't push me to do it, but he just sort of planted the seed that it was possible, I suppose. So yeah, in February I left JTC, um, and then I think, yeah, since then, like it's been a lot of work, probably more work you than ever before. But being able to wake up and then just work on the album, and then just work on everything in a reasonable time. Like I'm not staying up till half 11 p.m. at night because I've got to finish this video for tomorrow because I've had a full day of work. It's like I get to finish at a reasonable time, like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and it's like, okay, great. I can actually maintain some sort of like life boundary. But I mean, it took me so long to get to that point. I don't know if I would recommend it until you're ready. So having a full-time job whilst you're trying to do something on the side is incredibly smart. I would absolutely do that again because it's guaranteed income, very secure. If you if you can get an easier job that's not too like mentally taxing or physically taxing, that's always helpful. Like my jobs were like, I liked video editing, so I was just like, video editing done. Right, let's go write some music. It wasn't like I was finishing the day's work like, oh my God, that was hard. Like, so that's what I would recommend. And there's no need to quit. If you can, like I think everyone is like wanting to hone in on this idea of like, I want to do it full time. But it only makes sense to do it if you get, I guess, to the position that I was in, which is how I think I sort of justified it, where you physically aren't having enough time to do the things that you want to do, like write the album, like do all the videos you want to make, work on the projects you want to work on. Um, so it was only at that point where I was like, I think I'm going to have to do it. And it wasn't even like a celebration. It was just like, this is just going to happen, and I need to give it a really good shot. Like I owe it to myself to give this a shot. And if it doesn't work out, at least
You
I've
can go back.
tried. Yeah, exactly. At
Yeah.
least you've tried. That's why, you build up some savings, you take your time and you do it when you're ready. I don't think, especially music, is not really the best business idea, but if it does work out, it can be really good. Like I didn't, and I don't play music to make money because there's better. If I was going to want to make money from something, I wouldn't do music. So I do it just because I purely love it. And the fact that I am in such an amazing and blessed position that I can consider things like quitting my job this year, it just means that like so much more to me that I can finally like achieve some of my long-term goals that I've always had my eyes on and build on them and carry on what I want to do. Like the album's done. What's next? Let's figure it out. So, like I said before, I had like one song done in Bergamot in January. I quit my job and I finished the album
In
like 2 weeks
10 months'
ago.
time.
So yeah, and
Great.
that's with me doing everything. So orchestra programming, automation, all that sort of stuff. Which I don't think, like David's one of the people that I know does basically he does everything himself.
Himself, yeah.
But you look at you look at Pliny like now, like he has Simon mix his stuff and someone else master it, and then Chris obviously tracks drums. So it's a lot workload wise and time wise on Pliny's shoulders. It's not as much like he has to just focus on the guitar playing, focus on the writing, and then he can kind of delegate and outsource because that's the point he's at. He's at that point where it makes more sense for someone else to mix, someone else to master. Um,
Yeah.
but I don't know why, I just really like how David does stuff. So I really admire the fact that he just does everything himself. So I guess I fell into that school of thought, and yeah, that's probably why I've reached this point quite early, where I'm like running out of time. So yeah, like it felt like I was on the edge of a cliff, and it's like you either take a step back and you're happy with not being able to do as much music, but it's more secure, or you just jump off the edge. You do what you want to do deep down, and you see what happens, and you have, you know, financial security behind you if you can, and then you just take your time with it and just do it a month by month and see how things go. And it's really important to, I think, I mean, it's such a massive conversation, but to have like a diverse income from the things that you're working on. So, like the JTC masterclasses are one income stream for me. Music streaming royalties are another. Brand work's
Brand
another.
radio, yeah.
So you have all these little. Alone, they're not enough, but together they can start to add up. And I guess like you can hopefully start to scale these things where you can get to a point where um, you can, everything adds up and you can live however you want to live. Like I'm not really interested in having a very luxury life. Like, we don't have big spends. Like we just sort of
Fair
live a
enough, yeah.
pretty simple life. And then it just means that like that you to meet that threshold is lower for me because I don't, I don't want a
Yeah, the base
Ferrari.
if the basic needs are being taken care of, that's all right.
Yeah, but
That's
if you want that sort of luxury life, material, you want like a nice car on the drive, you want a big house, then your needs are going to be very different, and it's very individual. And only a person is going to know that. If I quit at this point to do this thing full time, is that going to sustain the life that I want to lead? And for me, I was just like, I think I can give it a good go. So let's give it a crack and see what happens. And like so far, it's been going really, really well. So for me, I've not looked back. And when I left JTC, it was all just positive vibes. They all wished me luck, and I still talk to them all anyway, from time to time, just to catch up because they're just friends. They've become
yeah.
friends, and they're all rooting for me. So yeah, I mean, since then the signature guitars happened, and that's been like insane.
Yeah, congratulations on that, by
Thank
the
you,
way.
thank you.
Yeah, it's really awesome to see, like, that play out. And yeah, I can't even imagine how much big of a deal it must have been for you to go
Yeah,
from like looking at a Pliny video back in 2015 to then actually being alongside him on the artist page with
yeah,
a signature guitar yourself. That's super sweet,
yeah,
man.
yeah. Thank you. I think that kind of encapsulates like that thing I was saying before, like where you finally realize like maybe you are, you know, like the people are just very different in their own ways. Like I can compare myself to Pliny and say like, oh, I'm not as successful or whatever, whatever. And at the end of the day, like it just gets to a point where it's unhelpful. So
True.
it's nice to just feel like, like the thing that I've been working towards, like it's to have like a guitar. It's just it's very. I think strange is the word because I am just a guy, you know, just making music. So for something like that to happen, it's quite surreal. I've not really processed it now because like it's not something physical that really happens. It's like you post the day of the launch, you just press publish, and then it's like it's out, and it's like it's actually a thing that is it can be quite weird. You get summits. I don't know if you've heard of summit syndrome, but it's like when you finally achieve that thing you wanted to achieve, you reach the summit, and then you what do you do afterwards? It's kind of it felt a little bit like that, which is not to say I'm not grateful at all. I can't believe it's happening, but it's something I don't think enough people talk about, and I think you have
True.
to have like a plan of what you want to do. So the guitar's out, the album's done.
Now what?
It yeah, so it's very easy to think, oh, oh God, what am I going to work on next? And it's quite easy to fall into a bit of a lull, which is the I guess where I've found myself before, after I wrote Escapism. So it was nice to have a bit of an idea like this Christmas EP thing to just be like, right, the big stressful album's done. That's out of my hands. Let's actually just have some fun for a little bit. Um, and yeah, like I wrote an EP with Kian Hushman this year, and that will come out whenever it's ready. Like the music's done, but we're just trying to figure out like musician logistics because we literally could not be further apart on the world, and we want to film like stuff together. So,
Together, yeah.
so like when that happens, that happens. But that was
I
also really fun.
If I do the math, England is a little bit far from India, but Australia is also a little bit far. Why don't you both come over at my place and I'll film you guys?
Let's make it happen. You bought a camera, right? Let's do it.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just yeah, we could do that. India, I mean, you'll get super nice food for
It's
whatever
so
time you're
true.
here. Yeah,
It's
so
so true.
food's on me.
Oh,
I
there you
don't know
go.
about anything else.
Let's make it happen.
But yeah, man, what you just said about summit syndrome, I think a lot of people don't actually get to that point. That's because and those who do, they don't talk about the fact that after a point you have to grow your dreams, because growing your dreams is just as harder as achieving the dreams, because then you get full of yourself if you're not growing your dreams, and it's harder to stay humble. And
Yeah.
yeah, man, like I look at people like Misha talks into his guitar pickup, his signature guitar pickup, like, hey man, like he's being funny about it. And it's just one that Devin's Instagram page is hilarious. Like,
Yes.
Devin Townsend, like
Yeah.
it's just, I mean, to get to a point where all these things don't matter, and like that's really the dream, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people don't. Yeah. When you the summit syndrome thing, like I think a lot of if people do talk about it as well, it's from an outside perspective, it can seem like you're being ungrateful. Like I've seen, like you take like I don't know, like Olympians who finally win the 100 meters sprint. Like it's their literally dream as a kid. They finally win it, and to have once the lights go down and the attention goes away and it's all said and done, it's quite a hard thing to come to grips with because you have this sort of crisis of like, I've done it. What do I do? What do I actually do now? Because like ever since a kid, I was like, oh man, one day I'd love to have a guitar like that was mine, and it's happened, and it's like I just have to figure out what's coming next. And yeah, I think from an outside perspective, it's like, what are you crazy? You've won the
Yeah,
100-meter sprint. You've got a signature. What are you complaining for? So it's one of those sort of things that I battle with because it's like, no, I should be grateful. Like I I am incredibly like privileged to be in the position that I'm in, and I'm all like wake up every day and I'm like grateful that I can do what I do. But you have those moments where you're like, yeah, that like summit syndrome, or like those moments of doubt where you're like, oh, I'm not really sure what I should do next, or like you even have imposter syndrome, like what have I
Yeah,
done to deserve a guitar? Like I'm literally just a person on the internet. Like
yeah.
so you have to just try and I don't know, like
Get
you
out of your
the
head to some
yeah,
extent.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Totally,
it.
man.
That's good advice. Get out your head.
Yeah. And I would just like to share my experience about, because I had like a similar experience with you, but not to like a. I made the decision on my birthday back in late September, that yeah, and the next day I was like, yeah, let's just buy a camera and like full send this thing for the rest of the year. So
Let's do
I
it.
gave myself the liberty to explore life for 3 months, because so there are certain paths that get you to that place, but if you don't take that, people don't respect you for some reason, which is crazy, because that's not how it should be, but it is what it is. So having to fight that, and also that as a person, you have that love for your family, that you want to be able to like provide for them going down. So having to put all of that on hold and just focus on yourself was such a strange feeling, because I've never done that in my life. Like
Yeah.
care about myself, and like I'm taking that bet on myself, because if I don't bet on myself, who will, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So
nice to hear you say that, because I think a lot of the time, yeah, we don't give ourselves permission to try. I think a lot I don't know, yeah, like you say, for some reason it's very easy to get caught up in life and just get told like you're not allowed to try, and you're definitely not allowed to fail at
yeah,
something.
man, that's
And
worse.
whatever you do, it has to be a successful move, like a successful choice. But I think the older I've gotten, I've learned that actually like trying things and failing and learning from them is just as important, probably more important than having a success in whatever you do. Because you only really learn from when you make mistakes, and when you fail depends on the definition, but it's just you have to give yourself the permission first to give it a go. I mean, I've got full faith in you, dude. I'm sure it's going to work out. Um, absolutely.
Thank you, man. Thank you. um so yeah, dude, I, as a closer, like as the conversation comes to an end, firstly, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, having a chat with me. It has been lovely talking to you, and just how like I love when guests are in a mood to talk, because then I don't have to do that heavy lifting.
Yeah.
and I'm just happy that you were in a mood to like just full send it. So thank you, firstly.
Oh,
And if you have anything to say as a closer, I would love to hear that.
um, okay. Well, firstly, thanks for having me on. It has been super fun just to have a chat and talk about things that I don't usually talk about. I usually just say them in here. So it's been super nice. And I guess I'll just say like I think I don't know, let's not make it too profound. I think the first thing I'll say is like new music's coming. I know that's like literally like a cursed phrase. But new stuff is actually coming. Um, and I think it's just like I'm at that point where like I've put a lot of time into this album and a lot of time into the Kian EP. It's like a lot of deferred gratification. So the work is being put in, but you don't really see anything. Like, people are probably like, well, what's he doing and whatever. So yeah, I mean, it'll be out whenever it's ready. So yeah, not much longer, and I don't really have anything else to add, to be honest. Just that is coming soon, and yeah.
Nice. Yeah, watch out, people. Connor's gonna take the scene by storm.